Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Thoughts with Josh, presented by the Holy Happy Hour. And I am super excited because this past week we went and saw the new documentary, Radiating Joy, the Michelle Duppong story. And it was awesome. And that's my review. Thank you for watching. I'm just kidding. I want to talk to you guys about it a little bit because it was super awesome to see, and there was a lot going through my mind during this whole thing. It takes you on a wild roller coaster of super awesome, making you laugh all the way to like hold it together, don't cry, hold it together, don't cry, and it's something I would highly recommend you guys go see it. It's super cool to see someone who, I mean, she died in 2015. Someone that was that recent of a person to exemplify what it means to live heroically virtuous, and it is super encouraging. I think it's encouraging to see someone live like that, giving us that encouragement to continue to live like saints because we're all called to be saints and we are called to live like this. So, I wanted to kind of go through and give you guys some of my thoughts, some of my best takeaways. So, if for some reason this isn't like a Marvel movie or anything, but like if for some reason you haven't seen it, and you're like, oh no, spoiler alerts, don't tell me. Then pause this video, watch it some other time, watch it when you're done. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about what I thought of the movie. There were 3 saints that I thought she exemplified that I really feel like really had a play in her life. One of them actually mentioned in the documentary itself, and then I wanted to share a story that I personally have had, experiencing with Michelle Dupont as well. And so we get there, and it's super cool. There were a whole bunch of people there, and it's awesome to think that all these people came to hear the story of someone who was a focus missionary, was someone who lived in, I think it was called Haymarsh, North Dakota, traveled as far as like Lincoln, Nebraska, University of, I believe, South Dakota State, but lived in like these small towns. It wasn't like she grew up in a big city. It's not like she had some wild conversions of thousands and thousands of people. She worked as a focus missionary and then eventually worked for, I believe, it was like adult faith and formation for her diocese. Some of the most moving parts of this thing, and it was just super cool to see. And it's super cool to think of the future, um, is to see actual videos of her talking. There were some videos where she was inviting people to this conference that she threw called the Thirst Conference. She mentioned some of the convents that she went and visited, the sisters, that the Sisters of Mercy that have, underneath all their crucifixes, "I thirst." One of the last words Jesus spoke, and it was just super moving to hear someone who is possibly going to be a canonized saint actually speak. And one of the first things I noticed was the way she spoke. She spoke with such conviction, such passion. You could tell that this wasn't something that she was doing because it was her job. It wasn't something she was doing because she felt like she had to because we're called to and it was an obligation, but it was coming from just her pure heart. It was coming from a thirst for wanting to bring people to Jesus. And I think, I can't remember word for word what it says, but she says something at the very end of the documentary that Jesus Christ wants you in heaven. Will you accept? Or something to that extent, and it was super beautiful to hear the way she spoke. The second thing was it was cool to hear how others spoke about her. Now, a big part of the investigation into becoming a saint is they do this whole interview process with people around you, bishops in the area, priests, friends, family. And so it's cool to see focus team leads. It was cool to see students she walked with that were there, maybe even converted to the faith while she was a focus missionary at their school, and then went on to marry a Catholic man and became a great Catholic parent and continued to stay in touch with her. Super cool to see priests that were touched by this lay woman. It's cool to see her family, this little farm family from Haymarsh, North Dakota. Cool to see them talk about her, and I honestly don't know how they even got through without just bawling their eyes out. But and then it was, I think, the coolest, and I saw it in a trailer, and I was like, "Whoa, that has to be her sister." But her sister talked about her, and I'm terrible with names, and it popped up like once. I can't remember her name, but the one that sits in the chair the whole time, she does most of the talking. It was so cool to hear her talk about it. She was in between jobs, and she said she felt called by Jesus and she has a nursing background to serve Michelle in that last year of her life, and to be at her bedside, to serve full time with her and be there. So it was so cool to have someone like that, a family member, especially a sister, such a great bond, as a witness to this incredible story. Now, I wanted to get into with some of these interviews the first saint I saw in her, and everyone that mentioned her and everyone that answered questions about her said the same thing. And it wasn't one of those. They said it in different ways. They said it in their own words. Some of them were from the University of Mary, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, University of Nebraska, Lincoln, all over the place. But it was cool to see that no matter who it was, whether it was a priest, whether it was a student that said they were a freshman and not Catholic, no matter who it was, they said the number one thing they saw about Michelle was how present she was, and they referenced Saint John Paul II, Saint John Paul II, Mother Teresa too, I believe, but Saint John Paul II, how like when he was in a conversation with someone, he was there and he was present. And they said that these people have this ability to just like it's like the world around them just melts away. And I thought that was so awesome. I think that's something I struggle with sometimes as someone who likes to talk. That's why I started a podcast. Is I like to talk. Uh, my wife needed me to vent some other way, an avenue to get it out. No, but really, sometimes I feel like I can talk, and then as soon as someone starts talking back, I'm already thinking about what I'm going to say. And it was super inspiring to hear them talk about how present Michelle was, how it could be in a crowded room and people just passing by and going all over the place, but she was there, she was locked in, she wasn't seeing any of it. It wasn't like she was looking over to see like who's around the corner, who's coming in and looking around. She was just present and there with that person. I think that is one of the biggest attributes that we could give as Catholics, as Christians, to those around us. I think that is the number one thing that someone can see immediately. We're always checking our watches, we're always checking our phones, we're always checking things. But if we could be there and be present with people, evangelization is going to happen so much better than if we're just constantly distracted. This world wants to distract us, the enemy wants to distract us. But if we could be more like Michelle, be more like St. John Paul II, and let the world melt away, in that knowing in that moment there's nothing more important than this person that I'm talking to, whether it's a best friend, whether it's your spouse, or whether it's just a stranger. There's nothing more important than that person you're right in front. So that was the biggest thing that stood out to me right away. The next, and not to get into the entire documentary, so I'm not going to go word for word of like what it was, but the next thing that I really, really loved was, so she gets sick, she gets cancer, and it's kind of out of nowhere. She kind of starts having this pain in her abdomen. They take her into the hospital, and they realize this tumors, and oh my gosh, it's growing. Like it's I don't know the stages, but I believe they said stage 4. Um, and they're starting to all these surgeries. They're starting to remove organs that can't be saved, and they're trying to remove these tumors and do all this stuff. And she's in a hospital bed, and they mentioned so many times of how these hospital staff, the nurses, the doctors, and the people that would come and visit, that she would always ask, and no matter what state she was in, the person when nurse would come in, and she'd be like, "Hello, how are you doing?" Someone that's in a state that has every right to not even think about anyone else. And they talked about that as like what, like this woman that has tubes sticking in between her ribs and tubes in her gut and all that stuff. She's asking me how I'm doing today. It was such a great witness for Jesus within the hospital. And she did this out of what was natural to her as a focus missionary, as growing up Catholic. And I thought the coolest part of the documentary, and I kind of saw this myself, and I'm not speaking for Michelle or her family, but something her sister said is as they would tell these stories, and as the staffs would tell these stories, the word would get around. And there was a priest, and there were like 4 or 5 priests that were in this uh, video, including Monsignor Shea and Father James Chaney, who I actually met recently on a Petrus conference. But this priest was coming to visit her, and when he gets there, he says, "Michelle, like I've heard so many stories. You're making such an impact on the staff here at the hospital." And her sister said that she said, "I am." And it seemed like in the story that this was a turning point for her. That She was just doing that out of what was natural to her. But when she was told, "You're making such an impact," I feel like that priest maybe subconsciously delivered her a message saying, "Michelle, you can still serve. Like, you can still be a missionary with the people of this hospital." And so there was a change, and she would want to pray. She wanted to pray with the nurses, pray with the doctors. One of the doctors even said, "Everyone knows I'm not religious." But by the end of it, he was like, "I fell in love with Michelle." And she would ask me to pray, and I found myself actually closing my eyes and actually entering into prayer with her. And just how beautiful this was. All of this while in agony and getting this random news all of a sudden out of the blue that she is heading towards death. I thought it was beautiful. I love that one of her the focus he would have been the regional director while she was a first year missionary. Was saying that we're the best campus, University of Nebraska, best focus campus, and she as a first year missionary actually called it out and was like, no, we shouldn't be thinking like that. We shouldn't be thinking with pride. And he was kind of taken back. And he goes, "And did I change? No." But he goes, "But years later, I did confront her and say thank you for that. Like that was something like yes, I was speaking out of pride, that isn't how we should respond." And I thought of Saint Catherine of Siena and the stories of her writing to the Pope and telling the Pope get back to Rome. And I thought that was so cool. So we see this gentleness and this joyful, but also this woman who's taken her faith so seriously and isn't afraid to respectfully call out and help her brothers and sisters around her continue to strive for Jesus and continue to be like a saint. I don't know who would actually respond like that aside from someone who's got it figured out of like becoming a saint is the number one thing. So that's the second saint that I saw in her. Just so cool. Um, and so yeah, this documentary, if you guys have not heard of it, check out I got the link in the description below. I'm actually as I'm recording this, I don't know how it's available now. I know that was a one night thing, one night showing, but I'll figure out um, if it's provided somewhere, if you can buy it somewhere, if you can rent it somewhere, and I'll include that in the link below. But you guys have got to get this and got to check it out. It is so moving and it's so cool to see. It's cool to see videos in the homily from her funeral mass. It's super inspiring to see all the people that travel from all over the United States to attend the funeral, to be a part of the funeral. It's super great to see. And the last saint that I saw, about to be saint, blessed, Carlo Acutis. If you guys don't know the story about Carlo Acutis, he fell in love with the Eucharist. He had a whole website dedicated to the Eucharistic miracles. I believe died at the age of 15 or 16, so very very young. Um, but even though he was sick and dying, his love and his joy never changed. Something I saw in Michelle's story. But one of the biggest things I've heard is that several saints, but then also Blessed Carlo Acutis himself, appeared to his mom and said, "Mom, like I'm in heaven, I'm among the saints." And they said that there's going to be a whole generation of saints come after me. And I thought this was such a cool correlation between Blessed Carlo Acutis, who will become Saint Carlo Acutis next year in 2025, and already from 2015 we have hopefully another canonized saint following suit. But Carlo Acutis had warned us, had told warned us. That's kind of a that seems like a cruel way of not cruel. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, a gloomy way to say it. But that he kind of told us. He let us know. He announced it. There's gonna be a whole generation of saints that are going to come after me, and he was super excited. He was super excited to know that people like Michelle Duppong were coming as well. So we're all called to be saints. And if you guys are wondering how can I continue to live like a saint, I encourage you to get to this documentary and listen to the life of Michelle Dupont, because I truly believe that this is someone going to be super relatable to you. Worked on college campuses, worked within a diocese, worked with parishes. You're going to relate so well to this, and everybody can take something from this, and hopefully it'll encourage you to want to become a saint as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, the links are all in the description. You guys can continue to help us grow the channel by becoming a monthly supporter. You guys can find that link as well. You guys can also support by checking out the merchandise store, or you guys can get 10% off Sacrilegious. Oh, you guys know you love Sacrilegious. You guys can get 10% off. Just use promo code HAPPY. We love you guys for continuing to support the channel. Get ready for December because we got talking. Tell me about Hatera. I ran real blank of what it was called real fast. Tell me about Hatera, which will be coming out in December, and we got some even more stuff we're going to be adding soon. But get ready for the monthly support program really blowing up soon. We're going to be creating the best Catholic content community, online content, online Catholic content community that there is. We're going to make the best one out there, and we hope you guys join it. Help support the channel, help us spread Jesus around, and we will see you guys next time. Next week, we got Curtis Martin, founder of Focus, and we're going to see how well Dr. Edwards Tree knows Curtis Martin the following week. We'll see you guys soon, and God bless.